Welcome back to the program. So there are a little over 260,000 Somali sewer rats that have been brought to our country by Barack Obama in 2014, and they have been dispersed through about 18 different states. Obviously, the biggest state being Somali, which has a minimum of 80,000, but probably closer to 120,000. The second largest population is in Columbus, Ohio, and they are close to 60,000 in numbers. After that, you're probably looking at Washington State that has about 28,000. And then I think from there, you could see Arizona that has about 15,000. You have Vermont that has about 3 or 4,000. You have Lewiston, Maine, which has about 7 or 8,000. And then you have Virginia that probably has another 20 to 21,000. California also has about 15 to 20,000 as well. And then the rest are just scattered about. But it's 260,000 too many. Even one is too many. And many of them are legal citizens, unfortunately. But that does not mean they can't be denaturalized. Because once they are caught up in these fraud schemes, which I will predict right now are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 billion and higher in about 18 different states, is my guess. Because it's not all about Minnesota. And now, of course, they're not only in Minnesota, but now they're in Columbus, Ohio. And the HSI, the Homeland Security investigators, are on the ground right now in both of those cities, knocking on doors, going through different businesses, and they are looking at what's happening in all the fraud. So God bless Nick Shirley for doing what he did. But they have been doing this for many, many years. And I'm not taking anything away from what he did. What he did was extremely brave. And I would encourage others to do the same thing. And look, if you live in one of these cities and you do have a large Somali population and you know that there's Somali businesses, go out there and do what Nick did. Hell, I'll do it here in Arizona. I'll go into Phoenix. I would want an armed security force. So if anyone wants to provide an armed security force, I'll go knocking on doors. Wouldn't be the first time. Certainly wouldn't be the last either. But the bottom line is, we have to make their lives uncomfortable. Because if their lives are uncomfortable and they know that the grift is over and the jig is up, guess what? They're going to self-deport. And that's what we want. Yes, we want to hold them accountable. We want them in jail. We want them indicted. We want them prosecuted. All those wonderful things. But if we can get 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 of them to say, hey, I can't make any more money illegally in America, so I'm just going to leave, well, guess what? That's a victory in and of itself as well. So they are taking this serious. And I know what you're thinking. Well, no one's been arrested yet. Well, I understand that. Give it time. This is what just happened today from the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. Listen to this message.
Hello, I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care.
$185 million a year in child care funds comes out of HHS. And the way that it's been working is they just stroke a check. They don't check anything. They don't verify anything. They don't check and see if the daycare centers have any children in them. They don't ask for pictures. They don't ask for student rosters. They don't ask for anything at all. Which is why these Somali sewer rats don't have to worry about spelling, learning, and put Leering Center on everything. Because they know that nothing's going to be checked. And the people that run Minnesota are all on the take. Every single one of them. The police are on the take. Every single politician is on the take. And many parents are on the take as well because they look the other way as well. It's really insane what's been going on. But listen to what he says right here. This is pretty important.
$185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America.
Okay, now that's big. What he just said is that he has now suspended all federal payments, not just to Minnesota, but to every state, all states in the United States of America. And there's now new rules. You cannot just get a check from the federal government anymore. Now you have to be able to prove how many students, prove how many patients, if it's that type of a business, how many beds. You have to have visual proof. You have to have pictures, video, all of these different things. And that's what he explains here in just a second. So no more blank checks from this administration. And again, this wasn't really from this administration. This was much more from prior administrations. AutoPen.
Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I have just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
So that's really big too, because they're demanding records. Well, guess what? They don't have any records, okay? Because they didn't have to keep any records because the money was flowing because all these politicians were allowing the fraud to happen. So they're not going to have attendance records. They're not going to have students' names. They're not going to have roles. They're not going to have patients for the home health care centers. They're not going to have doctors that were on schedule. They're not going to have reporting numbers. They're not going to have anything having to do with actual documentation because the fraud was allowed to take place. They didn't need any of that stuff. So the fact that they're asking for this stuff goes to show me that not only are they serious, but there's going to be indictments. There's no question there has to be indictments. Listen to what he says right here.
Complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
So there it goes. That's why I do feel very confident that not only is the fraud over, but they're going to go after the bad actors. Look, you have Homeland Security investigators right now on the ground all over the place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You also have them in Columbus, Ohio. You also have them in Lewiston, Maine. Those are the 3 areas that I know for a fact that the FBI and HSI are right now on the ground doing investigations. Now, I don't know if they're going to go into other states. Hopefully they will. But I know for a fact that they are on the ground in those states. And those are pretty big states when it comes to the type of fraud that we are seeing. But also Washington State. Washington State is another one to look for in the next few weeks because they're going to go in there as well. There's a very large Somali population in Washington State, and they are going to go there and they're going to do the investigations in there as well. But the buck stops with the governor. It stops with Keith Ellison, the Attorney General. It stops with the Punjab wearing hijab supporting attorney, assistant governor, whatever, deputy governor of Minnesota who just did that. It starts and stops with Jacob Frey, the mayor, the Somali-loving mayor of Minnesota. Minneapolis. So again, all of these people need to be held accountable. And I think at some point they will, because the fraud is so widespread. And there's going to be so many people that are going to be involved in this. And, look, James Comer's doing investigations. He's going to bring Tim Walz in. He's going to bring in all these Minnesota officials. And if they decide to plead the fifth, that doesn't mean that they're getting away with it. It just means that they're going to have to do more and more and more to get the information so that they can pin it on Ilhan Omar and the rest of these idiots. And who knows? Denaturalization should be next. And I do hope that this administration is serious about that. But what you can do in the meantime is you can make their lives miserable. You can go down to these locations wherever you might live, and you can videotape them. You can ask the questions. You can say, where are the children? Where are the patients? Show me the logs of people that you're driving back and forth in these medical transport businesses. You can all do that as well. And like I said, I'll do it. I have no problem with it. I want armed security to do it, but I will do it. I got no problem with it. So I would encourage others to do the same thing. Because if we can make their lives uncomfortable and they realize that the grift is over, a lot of them will self-deport, God willing. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.